Hello and welcome to our series of webinars on grazing management. My name is Rachel Dorney and I'm the local regional agricultural land care facilitator in the upper region of Northwest LLS. My co-chair is Lana Andrews, who is also a regional agricultural land care facilitator for the lower region of Northwest LLS. We will have a number of speakers in the series of webinars: Mark Gardner from Vanguard Business Services, Nick Henry from Cibolabs, and Brett Smith from Elders. We would like to show our respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, of Elders past and present, on which this meeting takes place today. The Maintaining Productivity in a Variable Climate is a series of workshops covering particular areas which influence productivity and profitability for an agricultural business. These webinars are the second workshop in the series focusing on grazing management. We have been impacted by COVID and have adapted to recording this workshop instead of face-to-face. This is a pilot to see if it is an alternative way to deliver this information to local producers. Any feedback would be appreciated. Where to from here? We will be running 3 30-minute drop-in discussions for anyone to ask questions of the presenters on this content. We would not be able to run these workshops without the support of our funding bodies, Northwest Local Land Services through National Land Care Program, Federal Government, Cibolabs, and Meat and Livestock Australia. I'll now hand over to Mark and Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, I'm Mark Gardner, a farm consultant here in Dubbo, and I'd like to thank our funders for this project, particularly Meat and Livestock Australia, which funded through the producer demonstration site a project at Walgett where we've been working with 3 landholders, demonstrating this technology in use from Cibolabs and learning how it can be used, and also learning confidence in matching the technology of the computer and satellite with what we actually see in the paddock and developing confidence. And also we'd like to thank the Northwest LLS that's also helped us with that project. We've been working with 3 landholders closely, meeting monthly, going through the sort of stuff that Nick's going to show you, and really understanding how this technology can be used, particularly in some of these larger properties. So I'd like to introduce Nick Henry from Cibolabs, and Cibolabs have done a fantastic job in bringing this technology down into more practical use for farmers and very, very accessible, almost real-time monitoring of what's happening on the feed base. So thanks, great to have you, Nick, and I'll hand it across to you for the second talk in this series.
No worries. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I'll just share my screen, of course, before I start launching into it.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention Brett too. And Brett Smith, obviously from Elders at Walgett's, been a fantastic collaborator and a partner on this project too.
Absolutely. So what we have here, we just finished off talking about the total standing dry matter layer in the web map and how we got to that point. So we're looking at the Glenera Somerset Pasturekey service. Thanks to Gemma for letting us, and the Hartogs for letting us demonstrate this property. We did talk before about the different layers that are and how they, and what service they can be used for. And so the total standing dry matter layer is basically giving us the indication of, or supplying an estimate to the farmer about the total standing dry matter in each paddock. Now we can sort of see that there is a mottled and a variable distribution of greens, reds, and different colours through it. And the process of providing that in this sort of context per paddock is quite useful in terms of giving the farmer an idea of what parts of the paddock are high and have larger biomass than other parts. So sometimes you might walk into a paddock and look across it and sort of go, oh, that's quite a big biomass. But then you might be entering the paddock from, say, the southern end of this paddock, and you can see that the northern end of it is quite low in comparison to one end there. So the total standing dry matter layer provides a single average number for the paddock. And the way to understand the total standing dry matter, it's like entering the paddock, getting a lawnmower and mowing that whole paddock, scraping that all up, drying it out and weighing it. And then we get a number basically that will be the kilograms per hectare. And based on that area of the actual paddock itself, we can provide what we're calling it. It's in this pop-up. It's called food on offer, but it's not. It's a number that is basically the kilograms per hectare times by the hectares for this. So there is no sort of validation in terms of utilization or residual left in the paddock. It's everything that's in that paddock cut down, dried up on that particular date and provided to you as an estimate. Now, for to take that number and make it meaningful, we also provide the forage budgeting aspect. Is it all right if I go into that, start talking about the forage budgeting? Yep. Okay. So the Glenara Somerset scenario, we've done a forage budget for them using our own template. But before I go over to that, this is the data folder. And this is where all the information, all the analysis bits and pieces over time end up in here. So the CSV folder basically has in it the numbers that we display in here, so the kilograms per hectare, and the food on offer. And like I was saying before, the web map is displaying what we call the 15-day rolling average, but the CSV file actually shows each individual analysis date as a single column. We also show in the CSV file the 15-day rolling average. So this is the general run-of-the-mill CSV file. And so on the left-hand side we have the paddock names. If I can move that out, yep. So we can see all the different paddock names. The SIBO hectares, so this is the hectares that we measure straight off the bat. This is how big that paddock is. And then we also provide this other information about how much of that paddock is open area for pastures and things to grow. So the non-tree or the treed area is subtracted from the total hectares. So the tree area is mainly dense forest that we sort of take out of that number. And as we scroll along here, the names for the actual columns are the names of the type of data that we're storing, and whether or not it's and the date that it's stored. So the type of data is a FU15, and that means it's the 15-day rolling average number for the 14th to the 9th. So the data in this CSV file goes back to 2021. September. So then if we scroll over further through the process, we can come to the next column type, which is all about food on offer, but on the single dates. So this stuff is the 11th of the February 2022, and that's a single date food. And so then if someone's more interested in the single dates, then they can come to these other columns. So the way it works is that this spreadsheet will keep growing out to the right, out to the east, and the different columns will keep being thrown in. So we've come to the end here. So this is the 21st of the 7th, 2022, and that's a single date FU number. And then we start into the TSDM 15 number. So that's the rolling average 15s. And then at some stage we'll move over into the single date total standing dry numbers like this one here. And if we keep going to the right, we'll get to a certain point where we start to see hundreds, just hundreds, numbers between 0 and 100. That's basically indicating that's the end of our total standing dry matter and food on offer columns. So this final column here is the 21st of the 7th, 2022, and it's the single date total standing dry matter for each paddock. And if we keep going along here, we can sort of see that these numbers change, and that's all to do with cloud cover. When it's 0, it means that we couldn't see any part of that paddock. If I go back to the total standing dry matter and click on this paddock over here, which is cloud affected, we can say, okay, 19%. So all we could see on that particular date was 19% of the paddock. This one here is 36% of the paddock. Where's the zero? And there's no zeros anyway. And then obviously 100%. We got imagery that was for the full 100% of the paddock. Now, in a forage budgeting concept, what we generally do is look at the dates and these numbers here to see what was the most recent full set of data. So, the biggest numbers. So if we, look at these three here, we can see that they're on the 11th of the 7th, on the 16th of the 7th, and the 21st of the 7th, there is cloud cover effects, but the most recent full date would be the 16th of the 7th. So if we were going to move into a forage budget spreadsheet, I would look at this and say, okay, well, I'm going to use the 16th of the 7th because it has the most coverage across the whole farm, whereas the 16th, sorry, the 21st, it has some gaps in the information. So I would be more confident in, say, using the numbers from here. So we go back to that and we have a look at the 16th, wherever that was. 16th to the 7th. So this is the column of data I'm gonna take into our forage budget. So I'll just open up the forage budget here, and what you can see with the forage budget, it's pre-filled already. In terms of, I think it's been cleaned out a bit. Oh no, sorry, just I'm the tech guy. And so, I know how to work this thing. Just scroll up when you can't see everything. Something that has already been prepared for us is, the paddock name is filled, the paddock area, the total paddock area is filled, and the net paddock area where pasture is primarily the plants growing. And then we can start looking at how we utilize the total standing dry matter figures in here. And just what I might do, I might make a copy actually. Or what do you reckon? Should I just throw numbers in here? I don't know if they've been using it.
You're on mute, Mark. You're on mute, Mark.
Sorry, we've got about 5 minutes left on this talk, Nick, but we can delve into greater detail on the next. So just work with what you got if you like.
Okay, so let's just work with what we got rather than sort of changing the stuff in here. You can see that someone's already filled it out, and the date that they actually grabbed was the 25th of the 6th. So that's, a month ago. And their forage budget is for the 1st of July so it's the next basically 6 months period. And they've filled the TSDM values from that particular date. So from that particular date, we can actually start to plan out some sort of forage budget based on the landholder's knowledge and information. So some of the things that we accommodate in the spreadsheet is the concept around, hey, maybe the data that we've provided you is, 10% too low or 20% too low across the board, or, hopefully not that bad, but 50% too low or 50% too high. So you can actually come in here and say, okay, well, you can say, I believe, I'm happy with that number that we've provided, or you can say, oh, well, I think it's actually 90%. So you can change that percentage there, and then that'll give you a more comfortable number for you to work with. And then basically after that, the number, you can start to throw other percentages in there to do with detachment. So what growth phase a lot of the pastures are at. So you might see that there's, no detachment because they're pretty active. And then you can start talking about unpalatables in there as well. And then basically that will give us a final number to work with. Oh, sorry, there's another one there called residual. So, someone might want to leave 750 kilos in the paddock constantly. So then that gives them a better understanding. And then, so So then after those adjustments, there's going to be a number in here to do with the available for grazing total standing dry matter per paddock. And then there are some other aspects in here that I'm probably not the best one to explain, but things like if we go for the wrong dry matter intakes. So in some areas, the quality of feed might be high. So then they, so this little select production zone, high, medium, or low, is a concept around whether you think the pastures in the paddock are highly nutritious or they're low nutrition. So that means then for an animal to feel full, they need to eat more. So if you say, well, these are highly nutritious and valuable pastures, they would only have to eat 7.5 kilos a day to maintain or to grow. And then also in there, I forgot to mention that you might have an anticipated growth rate, and maybe for the next 6 months there will be no more growth, apparently, or according to the farmer's knowledge of the actual of that. So once you start to play with these numbers and get a feel for it, you'll eventually come out at the other end with some numbers that you can play with. And the farmer would look at those numbers and go, okay, well, should I destock, or should I buy more in because I can have more capacity and those sort of things according to the numbers that they have. Any questions on all of that?
Okay, Nick, so that's something that we've been working with the Walgett Group, and it sounds really complex, but once the numbers are populated and we start to get a feel, what we get at the end is, do we have a feed surplus over the next 6 months with the animals on hand, or do we have a feed deficiency? And I think that's the bottom line that we get to. And, I know as we've been learning through the process with the 3 landholders, it's been really revealing about how they've used that. And I know one landholder actually was confident in taking on some adjustment, and the others are really sort of starting to look a lot more about feed quality and things like residual and a whole range of different learning based on, having that sort of information readily available, almost real time. So I think we might leave this talk at this point, which is fantastic. And please feel free to join into the next talk where we'll delve into these matters even further. So thank you, Nick.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.